Hello friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where I'm back behind the camera again because, if I'm being honest, I feel like for as much as I kind of enjoy doing and editing the in front of the camera stuff, I feel like it doesn't do a proper service to the toy itself when I make videos like that, because it's just harder to get it really focused properly and framed properly, and sometimes some of the details don't come through, so I'm going back behind the camera because I feel like it's really just to the benefit of the toy to actually have it, in front of the camera, and I can see exactly what's there. I can not have to worry about background stuff throwing off the focus, and I just feel like it's better for the subject matter of each video to do it this way. So, back behind the camera. If you all would prefer me to be back in front of the camera again, feel free to let me know, but I certainly wouldn't blame you if you wanted me to stick with this format. Anyway, I was just talking about doing this for the benefit of the toy, so we should actually talk about the toy in question, and that is Planet X's Charon, or Charon, which is their Nemesis Colors Are you f***ing kidding? And that toy in question is Planet X's Charon, and that's their Nemesis repaint of their Fall of Cybertron Optimus Prime mold. I put off getting this thing for a really long time because I didn't really like how chunky the legs were in robot mode, which we will see, but I'm so glad I got this because it really does not matter at all in hand, and this is just a really cool, solid, awesome figure, and it looks great in the Nemesis color scheme. I love this kind of, it's almost like a very, very, very dark gray rather than black. And then you've got these little hits of this kind of dull turquoisey bluish green in several places, and the red. It all just works really well. I actually kind of like how the contrast just turned way down for the paint scheme on this thing. Because I know a lot of Nemesis figures, they have like darker blacks and brighter turquoisey colors and brighter reds, and that totally works, but I feel like for this, it works really well just in this specific context. Granted, in Fall of Cybertron, a lot of the stuff was meant to be lights, and so it probably would make sense for it to be brighter because it's meant to evoke being lit up, but I like how it works all together here. Now, this being a Fall of Cybertron Nemesis Prime design, it does follow the Fall of Cybertron Optimus High Moon Studio design, which is basically, I believe they called it like a fist on wheels, and I can totally see that here. It's, I mean, it doesn't look literally like a fist, but it's like this really compact battering ram style vehicle with 6 wheels, which for some reason just kind of works in my mind. And then also there's lots of really nice little molded techie details all over the place in various spots. I also think it's cool how much attention has been paid to the back of both the vehicle and the robot mode, which makes sense because Fall of Cybertron is a third-person game, so you were constantly seeing the vehicles and the robots from behind, and so High Moon clearly put a lot of thought into what the backs of these models look like, and I really think it's cool that Perfect Effect is able to do a pretty darn decent job of replicating all of that. Like, you've got these little thruster bits back here, you've got tail lights, they're actually translucent red plastic, whatever this thing is back here, and then the kind of exhaust pipes up along the sides there, and yeah, it works really well. They also did translucent red, at least on the insides of the wheels. I don't know if they're entirely translucent plastic that's been painted, but it does have an interesting effect. If you've got light coming from behind, it kind of makes it look like the wheels are glowing a little bit. You can kind of see in there the translucent red plastic on the inside there. And yeah, it's a cool design. The only thing that kind of stinks about this is if you're looking at it from the side, you do have some gappage going on there. But it's only in this specific area. You have to be looking at it from a specific angle, and other than that, you really, it doesn't look gappy at all from any other angle. I just like this kind of dense, solid tank of a thing. Moving this back to do size comparisons. I need to readjust, hang on a sec. There we go, so here he is with the standard deluxe squad and, third-party Planet X figures, so he's definitely more sizable than a deluxe. And here he is with the duck tank. It's like the air traffic controllers at LaGuardia know when I start recording, and that's when they route all the planes over our neighborhood. Anyway, that is going to do it for the vehicle mode, so let us move on to the robot mode. And I will say, as is sort of the typical fashion I've seen with the handful of Perfect Effect figures that I've had. They tend to have like one step in the transformation that's a little bit disconcerting. In Charon's case, it's flipping these panels here back and through the legs, which we will see and hopefully won't be too challenging. I mean, it's not a huge problem, and I'm not afraid I'm going to break anything, but like there's a very particular way you have to go about it. Otherwise, things won't quite fit, and you'll have to pull it back out and try it again. It just seems like there's always something like that with Planet X figures. But anyway, robot mode. And after about 10 minutes of enduring a bunch of background noise because things just will not quiet down in this neighborhood, here we have Planet X's Charon in robot mode, and this is Fall of Cybertron Optimus Prime, but in Nemesis colors, so Fall of Cybertron Nemesis Prime, I guess. And this looks really, really good. Like, the legs are a bit chunky down here, but like in person, it doesn't bother me at all, and like if you just angle him even slightly, you don't even really notice it that much. And I really like this design. I feel like this actually works better as a Nemesis than as an Optimus. And what I mean by that is, like, the designs from Fall of Cybertron, War for Cybertron, all that stuff, they were a bit more aggressive, I guess, for lack of a better term. They still hit the same notes for a lot of the same characters, like, you know, this Optimus or Nemesis has the shin vents, the pec windows, the belly grill, kind of, and technically smokestacks on the shoulders. So like it does kind of hit the same Prime notes, but it just looks angrier. And I think that may have to do with the time frame, because these games came out in like, what was it, Fall of Cybertron was 2012, so almost 10 years ago. Yikes. But like, you know, they were doing something different with the franchise, and they decided, like, let's really push the envelope, to a degree at least, of how these characters look. And I am completely okay with that. I'm with a lot of other people, and I've said before too, how I'm kind of sick of the constant G1 rehashing. So the redesigns that they did for Optimus and Jazz and Cliffjumper and Megatron, Soundwave, all those new designs are great, and I really like them. But the thing is, they all kind of have this sort of more aggressive look to them. There's more harsh angles and sharper details in some places. And that's a primary reason why I feel like this design works so well for a Nemesis. A lot of it is what we saw in the vehicle mode too, with the like legs and arms and stuff, or at least the shoulders and the chest and the legs. So it's predominantly that like really, 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 really dark gray with the little dull turquoisey highlights and the red for the windows. And it works really well. I, again, really like the color scheme, and I feel like here now in this mode, you get a little bit extra color with the kind of silvery gunmetal for the thighs and pelvis, and the lighter gray for the midsection and the biceps. You get more of that contrast there, and again, the tones aren't extremely contrasty with the rest of the robot mode, but I think it works really well. It might be interesting to see what this looks like with like brighter turquoisey colors and brighter reds, but I don't feel compelled to want to paint this because I feel like it looks really good as is. The proportions are also pretty darn nice. Yeah, the legs are a bit chunky, but it's just because of the wheel packs here. Like if you ignore those, then it looks fine. He looks like a pretty beefy Nemesis Prime. There's also not really much in the way of kibble. Like, yeah, there is kibble, but like it's kind of on model. Going back to what I was saying before with the vehicle mode, I like how so much thought seems to have been given to the back. Which I know that's on High Moon, it's not Planet X. They figured out a way to turn this into a physical object, which is great, but the actual design and look of the back and how that all plays together was really on High Moon. And of course, they did that because, as I said, it's a third-person game, so you're looking at the backs of these characters way more often. I feel like, more than anything, it's the bumper bits up here that stand out. But like the rest of this, the fact that these little booster things from the back of the vehicle mode end up covering the backs of the calves and really kind of closing things off and cleaning that up so it's not all gappy is really great. As I said, it's a little awkward to shove them through the legs, but it's not impossible and it doesn't feel like I'm going to break anything. It's just, it can be a little bit irritating to try and get the right angle sometimes. And then of course the wheels back here, which from what I remember are accurate to the model. And I like that they even got this little detail back here, which has a little bit of blue back there too. I don't know, I really think they did a fantastic job with this, right down to the smokestacks sticking off the shoulders. It's really, really cool look. Bringing them in closer to look at the head and also the chest, which we'll get to in a minute. It's Nemesis Prime, Optimus Prime, and as I said, the kind of aggressiveness carries over into this head sculpt too, where it's identifiably Optimus or a Prime in that it's got like a similar helmet shape. He's got the thingy on top of his forehead. He's got the ears, though here they're definitely more pronounced. And of course the faceplate. But like, again, it's so angry looking. It just works so much better as a Nemesis in my mind. Did not realize I have a little red paint blemish on the front there. That kind of sucks, but whatever. And as you've probably noticed, there is a repro label. I wanted to put a Decepticon logo on him, so I just did the one shoulder. Now, as for the torso, the reason I wanted to talk about that now is because it's Prime, even if he is a Nemesis Prime, so he has a Matrix gimmick. And you all know how I feel about Matrix gimmicks, but I do appreciate the fact that this guy's is very, very subtle. I get the impression that the engineering that they put into the chest for the sake of the Matrix gimmick didn't really take anything away from other parts of the toy, so I'm fine with it. And it's also subtle enough that you really wouldn't know it's there unless you already knew it was there. But you can open up his chest, and I find the easiest way to do that is to come from the top here and just kind of get a fingernail into one of these crevices and pull back, and it'll pop the window out. And once you get the first one open, the second one you can come in from the side and give that a pop. And there's a double hinge here, so if you wanted to, you could hinge this back and open it more like this to kind of display the Matrix, I guess. But yes, there he has his dead Matrix, and you can, of course, remove this, which is a little tricky just because of the size and angles involved, but there we go. And in there is some molded detail. And then the Matrix itself is kind of a silvery gunmetal color with a translucent red gem thing in the middle. And it's fine. I don't really see myself ever needing to remove this other than for the sake of this video. And I don't really see myself opening up the Matrix compartment that often. I guess that's not a terrible look, but yeah, this is pretty easy to forget that it's there, and I'm fine with that. As I've said, I'm not big on Matrix gimmicks, and so if they're there but they don't like detract from the toy at all, that's totally fine. Now for the articulation, starting with the head, it's on a ball joint, so it can go up and down and tilt and spin. When you're transforming to or from either mode, you'll want to rotate the head to the side because that gives you the clearance you need to get it through this gap up here. If you have it out like this, it just doesn't quite fit. The head can get blocked by this piece back here if you push it in all the way until it clicks, but if you leave it out slightly, then it gives you enough room to get that tilt back on the head, so you can work around that. The arms have a lot of articulation, but they are also kind of limited just because of the nature of the shoulder pads here. You can rotate them out slightly, and then once they're rotated out, they can come out to about here, so not fully parallel, but you can kind of fudge it. Primarily, you just need to pull this forward, and that can give you all the tilt you need, but then the shoulder pad looks kind of weird. So yeah, generally speaking, the outward motion of the arms is not great, but it gets the job done. And of course, it can go the full 360, but the shoulder pad can crash into the stuff back here, so you kind of want to angle that out a little bit. But can do the 360. You get a bicep swivel. The elbow goes just a tiny bit past 90 degrees, and kind of the forearm bumps into the shoulder pads, so maybe if you rotate that out of the way, you could potentially get more, but it doesn't really look like it. Yeah, no, it stops there. The wrists are on swivels, but you kind of want to be careful because when you rotate it, it's possible for pieces to get caught up on other pieces at certain angles, and when that happens, you could potentially pop the fist off the mushroom peg. It was happening with this hand with me before, where if you rotate it a certain way, it just kind of comes off. I don't feel like you're risking breaking it or anything like that, it's just something to be aware of. And the fingers do the Masterpiece style, all 4 fingers on 1 pin thing. You can also get a little bit of this tilt on the wrist if you wanted to. If you pop open the door here a little bit, you can angle the fist up and down slightly. When this is in place, it kind of locks that in, so you can't really get that angling once that's in place. As for the waist, you do get a waist rotation, though the mechanism back here, the way it's designed, this piece will crash into the hip armor spot there, so you only get about that much rotation before it starts crashing, which I think is fine. But if you pop this bit apart, it gives you more clearance and you can rotate all the way around. And because of the hinges in here, you can actually use it as an ab crunch. So you can crunch forward, you can crunch back, you can crunch impossibly far back and absurdly far forward. So you do have options if you're willing to detransform that one joint. The hips can go forward about that far until things start crashing, and this stuff does not move, it's just molded that way. It can go back about that far. They can go out only about that far, but you can kind of rotate the leg to go out further, but it's a very specific angle you gotta go from. You get thigh swivel, which it's hindered by just the shape of this thing. Like back here, this kind of bumps into the joint that's connected to the waist, but if you angle it, you can get the full rotation. The knee, I'm going to show from the inside here because you really can't see it from the outside, but the knee does bend a little under 90 degrees, which is not, I guess, ideal, but at the same time, if you pop this joint out, because it just pegs in right here for the transformation, if you pop that out, you can get a much deeper knee bend. And as an added benefit, it doesn't look particularly great from this angle, but because there's so much bulk covering up the knee joint from this side, you can't really notice that it's detransformed. So you do definitely have that as an option from certain angles if it's like photography or something that you're looking to do with this guy. And then for the feet, you get ankle tilts that go both ways, obviously more inward. And they also go forward and back a bit. Oh, also the knees can bend forward. And, you know, it's a bit ridiculous how far forward they can bend, but it kind of works if you want to do that, like, slightly, I guess it's a super robot style pose or something, or an anime pose, I don't know. But you can angle the legs forward a bit. And of course, he also comes with accessories. I don't have his blaster on me right now, that's still tucked away in the box, and the box is tucked away in my closet, but if you want to see what that looks like, here's a photo. And I'm not super excited about the blaster, so I just leave it in the box, obviously. I just kind of prefer his melee options. And those melee options are this very beefy looking axe and this very beefy looking sword with some nice kind of tech details on both the grip sections and the actual translucent plastic red blades. I also appreciate how versatile these can be. Like, you can, of course, put these in his hands and they do the kind of standard thing where they just slide in and kind of push it back and it clicks into that spot in the fist, and now he's holding his sword, and you can do the same thing with the axe. That's not a bad look. I think it's pretty cool. But you do get more options with this, and that's what I really like about it. So, for the axe to start, you can rotate these pieces around. And these are just pegs, like they're just pegged into the thing there, so you could angle it down so it gives you kind of like a asymmetrical axe look. You can pull one piece off, give it more of like a single axe rather than double-sided axe thing. You can rotate it down that way to give it like more of a hatchet kind of look. You can pull this piece off entirely and plug that into the sword and give it kind of like a halberd look, which is actually how I prefer to use it. You can take the axe pieces and those can actually plug into these ports on the forearms, so you can give him like arm blades, which is pretty cool. You can also take the pegs on the sword on either side here, plug those into the forearm, and give him a arm-mounted sword, which is also pretty cool. Now, the way I prefer to do it is I keep the axe head kind of together, rotate these around so that just so that like the bulk of the blades are kind of going down and the peg is more towards the top, because you can peg this right here or here into the forearm and it gives him kind of a buckler. And if these bits are folded up, it just kind of looks a little wrong, like it sits up too high on the arm, so that's why I have them rotated this way. But yeah, you can turn the axe into like a energy buckler, and that's really cool. I like that a lot. And then I also like the kind of halberd style weapon that you can make out of it. And it doesn't quite reach the table when you've got it all together, but that still looks pretty darn cool. And you can make use of popping that panel out slightly so that you can rotate the wrist down to give him kind of an angle for when he's holding his weapons, and it just looks cool. So yeah, really into the kind of versatility that you have with the weapons on this guy. Specifically the melee weapons. The blaster, kind of take it or leave it. Anyway, let's get this adjusted a bit and move on to more size comparisons. Here he is next to the standard deluxe squad, and he's not massive in terms of height. Like, he is definitely bigger than a large deluxe and way bigger than a standard size deluxe, but you know, it's not massive. But Planet X, they're not doing like masterpiece scale from what I understand, and that's totally fine with me. I'm kind of at the point now where I prefer my toys to not be gigantic, with some exceptions, with some clear exceptions, but I kind of like this size. Feels substantial without taking up too much shelf space. Here he is with a fellow Planet X figure, that being Planet X's Vulcan, their take on Grimlock, and Grimlock is bigger and beefier. I do believe Grimlock is actually supposed to be a little bit larger than this compared to Prime's model in the game, or maybe a lot bit larger, but I'm not a stickler for scale. As long as Grimlock's bigger, that's fine. They do look great together, though. Here he is with another Nemesis Prime, that being the Transformers United Black Convoy, I believe. The Nemesis Prime repaint, the Takara Nemesis Prime repaint of Classics Optimus Prime, and I'm so thrilled that I managed to finally get my hands on this figure, because this is the deco. This is the one that I really, really wanted to get, and the Universe version just wasn't cutting it for me. But we're not talking about him. We're talking about him, and so this is how he compares with the Classics Prime mold. So he is taller than a Voyager by, I want to say, half a head, give or take, somewhere around there. And I need to readjust. Here he is with another third-party Nemesis, that being Generation Toys OpX, but Nemesis Colors. I forget the actual name for this guy, but there they are together. I still really love this thing. And let me readjust again. Alright, and here he is with the duck tank. So that will do it for Planet X's Charon, their Nemesis version of Evolved Cybertron Optimus Prime, and I really, really like this figure. It's Planet X is, I can't say they're my favorite third-party company. That right is reserved for Mastermind Creations, surprise, surprise. But they do really good stuff, and I particularly like that they've been handling lines and aesthetics that other companies have basically been avoiding. That being said, their IDW Grimlock looks fantastic, and I've got a lot of things I want to say about that thing. I'm just waiting for mine to come in. Supposedly it's going to be in sometime this month, so I'm waiting on shipping my BBTS pile of loot until I can actually get that thing, but we shall see. But regardless, Charon here, fantastic, and this color scheme, in my mind, is the best way to get this mold. But that is enough about what I think. What do you all think of Planet X's Charon, or this mold in general from Planet X, or even just Planet X figures in general? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. We are still doing the Patreon thing, so if you are so inclined, it's a $1 tier. It's the only tier there is. It supports the channel and gets you access to videos a little bit early. With all that out of the way, though, thank you everybody for watching, and remember, art is more than meets the eye.